right, in this example, we're going to create and analyze a frequency table. Forbes magazine published data for the best small firms in 2012. These firms, which had been publicly traded for at least a year, have a stock price of at least $5 per share and have reported annual revenue between $5 million and $1 billion. The table below shows the ages of the chief executive officers for the first 60 ranked firms. Right, so let's look at the table. Right, so we have the ages split up into different categories of 40 to 44, 45 to 49, and so on. We have the frequency, which means 3 of these 60 CEOs were between 40 and 44, 11 were between 45 and 49, and so on. Alright, so let's see if we can answer some of these questions. What is the frequency for CEO ages between 54 and 65? Alright, so let's look. 54 and 65. So this means this one here up to here. Okay, so between 54 and 65, when you're told between two values and it doesn't say not including, this means it does not include 54 and 65. So we're just going to look at these rows, 55 to 59 and 60 to 64. So there's 16 in that first group and 10 in the other, so that's going to be 26 in total. All right. What percentage of CEOs are 65 years or older? Okay, so we're going to fill in the table. We're going to do the relative frequency. Okay, so the frequencies, these numbers should add up to 60 because we're told is the 60 ranked firms, and you can add these up just to check. So 3 plus 11 plus 13 plus 16 plus 10 plus 6 plus 1, that's 60. Relative frequencies you find by dividing the frequency by the total number. 3 over 60, 11 over 60, 13 over 60, 16, and so on. So we can complete this table right here. 1 over 60. Alright. Okay, and you can change these into decimals. You can round to maybe like 3 or 4 decimal places. So this is 0.05. 11 divided by 60 is 0.1833. 13 divided by 60 is 0.2167. 16 by 60 is 0.2667. 10 divided by 60, 0.1667, 6 divided by 60, 0.1, and 1 divided by 60, 0.0167. Okay, so those are the relative frequencies. Right, and this helps you figure out percentages. So when it says what percentage of CEO are 65 and older, those are going to be in the last two rows. So they're 10% in 65 to 69 and about 1.7% in 70 to 74. So if I add 0.1 plus 0.0167, we go 0.1167, and turn this into a percentage. This is 11.67%. Okay, let's look at C. What's the relative frequency of ages under 50? Okay, so let's fill in the cumulative frequency, which might help us with that answer. We can add things up, but I think it's easier to find the cumulative relative frequency. So this means that you're going to start with the first row here, the relative frequency 0.05, and then to get the next one, you're going to do this plus this, so 0.05 plus 0.1833, 0.2333, and then you add the next one, plus 0.2167, so 0.45, add the next one, plus 0.2667, 0.7167, add the next one, plus 0.1667, get 0.8834, add 0.1, 0.9834, and add the last bit, 0.0167, and hopefully we get close to 1. So I get 1.0001. So we're going to do this. Okay? So always the last one should be as close to 1 as possible. Technically it should be 1, but if you're rounding along the way, you might get something that's close to 1, and that's fine. It's just rounding error. Alright, so what's the relative frequency of ages under 50? So basically, under 50 is these two columns, and you need to add them up. The cumulative relative frequency adds everything up to and including that last row. So it's going to be 0.2333 is the answer. All right, what's the cumulative relative frequency younger than 55? So that's going to be adding up the first 3 rows, which is this cumulative frequency, 0.45. All right, and part E, which graph shows the relative frequency and which shows the cumulative relative frequency? I don't have those graphs here. Let me see if I can find them. All right, so back to that question. I found the graphs. Okay, so here's the 2 graphs that go with that problem, graph A and graph B, and you can look at relative frequencies with the age categories. So the cumulative, relative and cumulative frequencies, so the first one is the relative frequencies, and you can kind of see that they correspond with the frequency in the tables. For age group 50 to 54 is just over 0.2. Right? 50 to 54 is just over 0.2, 0.2167. And the relative frequency graph should be steadily increasing because you keep adding the frequencies on. You start with the first bar should be the same as the one in the relative frequency graph, and then the last bar should be 1. So this is the cumulative relative frequency graph. All right.